you, sir? We heard a lot about you from Ramaiah, sir.
Yeah, let me, I think I've lost my...
Uh, yeah, I'm Rekha.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm Rekha from the Department of Library and Information Science.
Oh, okay. Pleased to meet you, Dr. Rekha.
Yeah, how are you, sir?
Okay, I'm good. Yeah, we had a whole summer of kind of semi-lockdown.
Okay.
And so we were just released from prison on Tuesday. So the lockdown just finished on Tuesday. So I think we are all feeling happy.
We are really happy to see you, sir, because we heard a lot from Ramaiah, sir.
Oh, he's my very good friend. Yeah,
Okay, sir.
yeah, it's kind of like a life's privilege, to have met Dr. Ramaiah and be good friends. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I hope that you will all be able to come to Singapore. The pandemic will end soon.
No, I don't know what is going to happen here. The cases are slowly going up. In America also it is going up.
Yeah.
I don't know what is the situation in Singapore. Is totally under control?
I would say it is generally under control.
Yes.
But we also realize that with the new variants of the virus, we cannot fully be, fully controlled.
Yes.
So we have to get vaccinated and then just live with it. Yeah, I think we just have to live with it.
No, people, it's just because of people's carelessness and all these things are happening. So when it is relaxed, people will totally go out without masks and it is spreading it.
Yeah.
Ramaiah sir, good morning. Good morning to everybody.
Sir, good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. Sir, shall we start, sir?
Sir, please, if everybody is joined, please start.
Yes, sir. They joined.
Yeah. Okay, please start.
Okay, sir. So good morning and welcome to all to the Librarians Day 2021. Ananda Library at Pondicherry University and Indian Association of Teachers of Library and Information Science jointly organizing Librarians Day 2021 and a national webinar on knowledge graphs and visualization interface, a new direction in library information services on the occasion of 129th birth anniversary of Padma Dr. S.R. Ranganathan, father of library and information science and national research professor. In this regard, we have two distinguished speakers. One actually Professor Christopher Koo from Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, and Professor I.K. Ravichandra Rao, former head DRTC ISI, who is the direct student of Professor Ranganathan. So we also have actually two distinguished speakers, actually Dr. Harinderpal Singh Kalra, President of IATLIS, and we have Dr. Jagtar Singh, Director IATLIS. First, I would like to welcome our Honorable Vice-Chancellor, Professor Gurmeet Singh. Namaskar, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
It gives me immense pleasure in introducing Honorable Vice-Chancellor of Pondicherry University, Professor Gurmeet Singh, who made this university vibrant after taking over while it was in great turmoil. He is an internationally known academician and expert in corrosion chemistry. He is having 4 decades of teaching, research, and administrative experience at University of Delhi, one of the top universities in the country. He has produced a large number of PhDs and MPhils and produced over 200 papers and several books. He has given the Best Research Papers Award by the Electrochemical Society of India of Indian Institute of Sciences, Bangalore in 1991. After his taking over, Pondicherry University is progressing rapidly in all directions. I am fortunate to work with a dynamic person like with you, sir. I once again welcome you, sir, to the Librarians Day 2021 online function cum webinar. I would like to request Dr. Honorable Vice-Chancellor, Professor Gurmeet Singh to give his presidential address.
Thank you very much, Professor Ramaiah. I take a great pleasure in joining you in this celebration, which in my opinion is a very important one. We do celebrate all other days. If you are careful and if you have been noting, we have Mother's Day, Brother's Day, Friendship Day, all kinds of days are there. When we come down to the subject, we find everything being celebrated. But there was a time when Library Day was not being celebrated with enough enthusiasm. And in my own opinion, I feel this assumes the greatest importance, because every subject when you look at are going to be catered by this. So therefore, I deem it a great honor to extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Harinderpal Singh Kalra, who is the president of your association, and Dr. Kusu Guan Christopher, who is an associate professor from the Communication and Information Department of Nanyang Technological University from Singapore. I had the pleasure of visiting this way back in 1996, along with the other university which is very famous, that is Singapore National University. And I was very impressed with the way they are managing their things. And finally, Professor I.K. Chandra Rao, who was heading the Documentation and Research Training Center of Indian Statistical Institute at Bangalore, which was at Bangalore. He was heading the Bangalore Center. So I deem it a great honor to extend a very warm welcome to all of these luminaries who are here with us. And would like to express straight away my deep sense of gratitude for taking an initiative in celebrating this Library Day. As I started in my opening remark, that in my opinion, this day should be having the greatest importance in the arenas of universities, because you look at any subject, ultimately the library shall form a backbone of this, from the point of view of researchers, teachers, and students as well. Anything that you need to go to the library. Anything you want to clarify your doubts about, you need to go to library. And when we look at the way libraries used to be, maybe during my time and some of the seniors who have been around, the only thing that would emerge in our mind would be that library is a collection of books where there are some chairs and benches, and that's about it. One would go and read. And there are some old thinking, some administrators with centuries-old thinking that when we don't need good furniture, we don't need too much elegant furniture. After all, what you need to do is to pick up some books and consult and come back. You're not spending too much of time there. So that concept has altered, it has changed over the year, because, and that's what I kept on telling everybody when I used to be a student, that this should be a place which should be best kept when you compare it to anything else. This should be a place which should be, as I said, best kept, and it should have the most comfortable furniture for everybody, and the ambience should be of the highest level and best class, because this is where one is going to sit for long hours and read and clarify all one's doubts through the books. Now, over the years, which I'm sure you all would have seen, the way libraries have changed is something that we need to keep ourselves in line with. There was a time we used to have only books, journals. I remember when I used to go, having searched the chemical abstracts in all corners of the library, which used to be full of dust at times, and we used to find it extremely difficult to carry out our literature survey. But now when I look at the young researchers, They go to the library, open the computer, go to the proper site and look at what are the publications and what are the concepts which are changing. So things have changed, and they sit very comfortably in an air-conditioned atmosphere, very nice ambience with flowers around and with greenery around. Obviously, your mindset, your thinking, your style, your ideas about reading, consulting would take a new turn. You would feel like sitting there for longer duration and consult whatever you want to. Not only that, you would even encourage your students to consult, to go to the library, which earlier on people would not find it very convenient. So libraries are changing. And it is not only books, you have various programs. The books are there in the form of soft copies. The journals are there. The programs are there. You even have music. You even have few of those things which you could never think of getting it otherwise, but you find it in the library. So people would go to libraries for all their requirements, for clarifying concepts of subject, for consulting research, for well, maybe listening to music at times, which otherwise is not available with the kind of, but with the kind of programs that we have in the library, anything can be accessed, and you can find out some of the old classical Indian music, which otherwise is extremely difficult to find in our houses or elsewhere. And even in the market, you can't get that. But in library, you can go back to maybe early 20s and 30s and get hold of some of the best classics. So therefore, the libraries have changed over the years. Furniture, ambience, greenery, everything has undergone a sea change, and every library now has connectivity, computers, and you can get across to anything. And not only that, in fact, all the good libraries across the world are connected to one another. So with that connectivity, sitting here, you can reach any library. And that's the way library science is also changing. I am very fortunate that I am associated with the university where Professor Ranganathan spent a large part of his life, and he's truly considered as the father of library science. So therefore, with by taking a leave out of his book, I'm sure library science is going to grow further in the right direction, and it will provide a right sort of platform for everybody across all universities, not only for our country, across the world. And I don't think days are very far off when every library in the world would be connected to one another. And that's what we are looking forward to. If there is a library in the remote part, why should he be buying everything and going in for purchasing very expensive journals and books when he can get across to the other library by means of connectivity, and one can have an access to that. So library science and libraries are in for a tremendous growth in the days and years to come. And I wish, with this day being celebrated, I'm a great supporter of this, that this should be celebrated with absolute gusto and enthusiasm, so that people across should know that here is one area which is the fastest growing across. So I'm sure it will be in. We are all in for a great treat in the form of connectivity and modernization of our libraries. And not only that, in fact, all these experts who are here today, you will have the pleasure of listening to some of the greatest. You can interact with them and you find out from them what is the urgent requirement which should be there in every library. And these ideas would emerge in the best of manners when you interact with such experts. I'm glad everybody has taken time out from their busy schedule to be here with us and to give us ideas, of course, and to interact with one another. Now that when you will be attending this, you will know the coordinates of everybody, and you can get in touch with them to modernize your own library, your own subject, your own ideas, And once that is done, let me tell you, under the new education policy, which is laying a greater emphasis on multi-exit, multi-entry, and at the same time on skill development. Now, I may not have looked at many of these things, but then once something comes to my mind, I can always go to the library and look at what way it can be developed. So that is the best, and this can be a best support to our new policy. Therefore, I wish everybody here who is attending this Library Day celebration for this year, I wish the program a grand success and wish you a very happy interaction so that you all can sit together and develop libraries and library science in particular in the right direction so that our society at large can benefit richly out of this. And in my opinion, as I said in the beginning, it is the need of the hour, and therefore I wish you all success and wish that you contribute richly to the development of universities in all areas. Thank you so very much for inviting me over here, and I wish you all the very success with the blessings of Almighty. I feel you'll all grow in right direction in your subjects. Thank you so very much, and I wish you all the success.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your encouragement and blessings on the occasion of Librarians Day. To all the LIS professionals participated in this function from all over India, and few are from abroad also. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So now, I would like to actually invite Dr. Harinderpal Singh Kalra, who is the president of actually the IATLIS. Dr. Kalra is presently working as a professor in the Department of Library and Information Science and also the Dean, Faculty of Education and Information Science, Punjabi University, Patiala. He has been over 25 years of experience, supervised in many PhDs and published a good number of research papers. Presently, he is the president of Association of Teachers of Library and Information Science. Now, I would like to request Professor Kalra to give his welcome remarks. Professor Kalra.
I can see him there. He's connected.
Yes, sir. Maybe his mic is muted, I think, sir.
I'll check him on phone.
Yeah.
Professor Ramaiah, there was an activity issue. He is coming on phone.
Oh, okay, okay. So in the meanwhile, you would like to cover up so that he will come and.
Okay, I can tell you.
So then I'll introduce you so that you can carry on. The next actually to cover up the time actually I would like to introduce my next colleague actually Professor Jagtar Singh, who is the director of IATLIS. Professor Jagtar Singh is the former head of Department of Library and Information Science and also the Dean Faculty of Education and Information Science at Patiala University, Punjabi University of Patiala. He is having over 37 years of teaching, research and administrative experience, supervised many PhD students and published over 120 papers and 8 books. He is the Commonwealth Academic Research Staff Fellow, editorial board member of many journals, received several awards for his work and visited many countries. Most importantly, he is UNESCO's national coordinator to the Media and Information Literacy Program in India. Now, I would like to request Professor Jagtar Singh to talk about the collaboration and partnership for IATLIS.
Thank you, Professor Ramaiah. First of all, I am deeply grateful to the authorities of Pondicherry University, particularly the Honorable Vice-Chancellor, always associating us with any professional event. Last time also we hosted this IATLIS conference jointly with Pondicherry University. Now we are celebrating the Ranganathan's Day. So it's always a great pleasure to associate with because I am given the responsibility of collaboration and partnership. First of all, I am happy that this Indian Association of Teachers of Library and Information Science was started by Dr. Ranganathan. So I feel in my 37 years of experience that as far as Dr. Ranganathan's contribution is concerned, it was symbiosis between theory and practice. His biggest contribution is his philosophy of library science, five laws of library science, where he talks of open access and putting knowledge to work. The five laws everybody sees. If I want to give you the thesis of these five laws, first is books are for use. It means putting knowledge to work. Information is for decision making, and quality of decision depends upon the quality of information. Hence, the evaluation skills are needed. Second is every reader his or her book. It means equity. There should not be any discrimination or discrimination. Every person who wants to have access to information and want to access, he should be given access to information and opportunity to express his views. There should not be any bias. Third is every book its reader. That is library outreach. Now, how we are going to, if the reader is not coming to the library, how we are reaching the library by library promotion and other outreach activities and social media. And then finally, save the time of the reader. That is time management. So the biggest challenge today is not information or knowledge. Today, biggest challenge is to manage your time and manage attention of the authorities. If you are not able to manage attention of the boss, then you are not going to get anywhere. And finally, library is a growing. Rather, I will add it's a growing and developing organism. You see, well, now we have the internet. That's a vast ocean of information. And a perpetual symposium of minds is going on there. So Ranganathan's theory is informed by practice and practice is informed by the theory. You start from his biggest contribution, philosophy of library service, librarianship, then knowledge organization. His biggest contribution is the facet formula, colon classification. He was not satisfied with the enumerative model of classification. So he has given us the faceted model. And then cataloging, searching and browsing. Now catalog is being replaced by the search engines like Google. But you see, Google cannot replace the catalog because in library everything is evaluation based and human intervention is there. And then library administration, library legislation, and then capacity building through library education. And finally, public library legislation for networking. So the network today with the help of information and communication technology we are having. But Ranganathan was also talking about the democratization of information and education. So his basic effort was that nobody should be left behind. So today we are not to speak much, we are to listen to our experts, Dr. Khu and this Professor Ravichandra Rao. So I'll not take much of the time, but I want to say that Librarians Day should not only be a ritual. We should do something more than that. There should be Ranganathan chair in some university where research on Ranganathan's work, and we should not see the relevance of Ranganathan. Ranganathan is always relevant because he was focusing on education and the democratization of information, education for all. He will be always relevant. Only thing is to reinterpret his philosophy in the changing environment. That was what he was saying in the canon of context, that when the context is changing, our professional processes should also change. Now the context is digital libraries, digital virtual libraries, and how we can reinterpret Dr. Ranganathan's philosophy and practice. That's the biggest challenge. And for that, I think in one of the universities of India, there should be Ranganathan chair. If Pondicherry University can take a lead, that will be nothing like that. I have great hopes from the Honorable Vice-Chancellor of this university. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Jagtar Singh, actually, for the inspiring and the words and the contributions of SRR and your suggestion to the SRR chair. So we look forward and then we'll try to actually explore that with our university authorities, what we can do on that matter. Now, I would like to request actually the Professor Kalra. Professor Kalra, you are there?
Yes, I am there.
Yeah, you please actually come on, and then you please give your give your welcome remarks.
Respected Professor Gurmeet Singh, Dr. Khu, Christopher Khu, Professor I.K. Ravichandra Rao, Dr. Jagtar Singh, Professor C.K. Ramaiah, and participants from all over the world who are participating in this Librarian's Day celebration and webinar. First of all, I would like to thank the authorities of Pondicherry University for giving Indian Association of Teachers of Library and Information Science a chance to participate in this webinar and Librarian's Day celebrations. This is the second time that Indian Association of Teachers of Library and Information Science and Pondicherry University are coming together. In 2019, the 5th International Conference of IATLIS was organized at Pondicherry University, which Dr. Ramaiah was the organizing secretary. I would like to say a few words about the history of and introduction to IATLIS. IATLIS was, though the idea of forming the IATLIS was floating around 1960s, it was in 1969 at Documentation Research and Training Center, Indian Statistical Institute, Bangalore, where the foundation meeting was held, and subsequently the Indian Association of Teachers of Library and Information Science was formed. And this is the place which was founded by Ranganathan, the Documentation Research and Training Center, and out of it emerged IATLIS. So we are thankful to the DRTC, and Professor Ravichandra Rao is here, and the people at and all those people who initially helped it found the association. The association has its objectives in promoting the exchange of ideas in education for library service, promote research in education and library science, promote the publication of books and periodicals on education and library science, to hold conferences, seminars, and colloquia for the development of and propagation of ideas on education and library science. This is an event in this series when we are organizing a webinar. So to give consultation service on education and library science, to promote the training of the teachers of library science in India, and to promote the welfare of teachers of library science in India. IATLIS is actively organizing annual conferences every year, and last year, because of COVID, we had to organize our conference in webinar mode, online mode. We could not organize it face-to-face conference. Every year it organizes annual conference and publishes IATLIS Journal of Library Education and Research. So I would extend a warm welcome to all participants and urge them to participate in the activities of IATLIS whenever and wherever these are conducted. So I extend a very warm welcome to participants and thank the Pondicherry University again for giving us a platform to share our ideas with the participants. Professor Jagtar Singh has already shared the philosophy and of Ranganathan with the participants, and he has taken a lead in collaboration and partnerships of IATLIS across various frontiers with many organizations and associations. He has been actively collaborating from UNESCO to ISLA to other organizations, and we hope to continue these partnerships and collaborations even further. And with the Pondicherry University, we are already collaborating in this webinar. So I extend a warm welcome and invite you to enjoy the deliberations of the webinar today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kalra, for enlightening us about the formation of IATLIS and its role in library information science education. Now, the main, actually, the purpose, the presenters are of this webinar is actually Professor Ku. Professor Christopher Ku is the main person. Of course, the two key speakers we have, and the first part, the key speaker is actually Professor Christopher Ku. So I would like to invite him actually for this webinar. And before that, actually, I would like to give a brief, actually, the introduction. So it gives me enormous pleasure in introducing Dr. Christopher Ku, who is working as an associate professor in the VKIM School of Communication and Information, Division of Information Studies at Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, where he teaches courses in knowledge organization, information architecture, data mining, and web-based information systems. He obtained his PhD from Syracuse University in 1997, his MSc in Library Information Science from University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign in 1987, and BA from Harvard University. He has also worked for several years as a science reference librarian, cataloger, and online information searcher at National University of Singapore. Sorry. His main research interests are knowledge organization, ontologies, automatic segmentation, sentimentation, and sentiment categorization, human categorization with behavior, natural language processing, information extraction, multi-document summarization, and clinical decision support systems. Now, I would like to request Dr. Chris Ku to give his talk on knowledge graphs and visualization interface, new direction in library information services. Over to Dr. Chris Ku. Chris, your mic is muted.
So thank you very much, Dr. Ramaiah. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry. Yeah, I'm not used to this Google meeting. This is the first time I'm using it. So, yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, Professor Gurmeet Singh, Vice-Chancellor of Pondicherry University, that is hosting this webinar. Thank you, Professor Harinderpal Singh Kalra, President of IATLIS, Professor Jagtar Singh, Director of IATLIS, Professor Ravi Chandra Rao, for inviting me and giving me this privilege of presenting a talk at Librarians Day. I know that this is a big privilege and honor, so I have to thank my very good friend, Dr. Ramaiah. Okay, let me see if I can see my slides now. Okay, right. Yeah. So greetings from VKIM School of Communication and Information at Nanyang Technological University. So this is a picture of my school, and you can see that there's nobody around. That's because for most of the summer we were in a semi-lockdown because of the pandemic. But the government luckily has just opened up, and released a lockdown. So we are expecting students to come to class next week. So the title of my talk is Knowledge Graph and Visualization Interface. I think we can all agree that libraries and librarians and library schools are all at the crossroads. We have to chart new directions ahead. Today and in the past, let's say 5 years, these are the big trends that we see in industry. There's big data, there's ubiquitous computing, Internet of Things, AI, open access, Web 4.0, fourth industrial revolutions. So these are all buzzwords, and trending topics in the industry and in academia. So in which of these areas libraries and librarians contributing? I think that primary school teachers and professors are doing some work in big data. And I know that librarians are very staunch supporters of open access, and many librarians are building institutional repositories and also publishing journals in open access. So I think these are the two areas that we are participating in. But as for the rest, I don't know whether librarians and libraries are involved in these new trends and initiatives. In the information landscape, we know that that is being dominated by Google. And so some students are saying, with Google, why do we need to go to the library? Now, I'm glad to hear that Professor Gurmeet Singh disagrees with that. You still need the library and still need to go to the library. Okay, so we have all these big companies that are dominating the information and the knowledge landscape. We have social media. People are getting a lot of good information on social media as well as also bad information. We have online publishers. We have e-commerce platforms like Amazon that has also have become a big player in the information landscape. We have online digital libraries like ACM Digital Library. We have media companies like Disney and Netflix and so on. So people have so many distractions, that and they wonder whether libraries and librarians are still relevant. Now, I think that there is a bright future for libraries and librarians post-pandemic, after a pandemic. But libraries and librarians need to transcend or go beyond the traditional library space and roles, and services. You need to go beyond the boundaries and roles that traditionally characterizes libraries and librarians' work. However, I think the window of opportunity is very small. I'm reminded of the report on climate change and global warming. There's a warning now that we have a very short amount of time to change. To do something to control climate change and global warming. I think this is true for libraries and librarians as well. We within the next few years we actually need to change the way we do things. We need to expand our conceptions and ideas of what a librarian is, what roles librarians play, what competencies are needed. So we need to re-examine these conceptions and assumptions underlying library and information science. We also need to re-examine what we do as library services and also how we do it. So the libraries and librarians need to identify new directions, and to develop new services and change the way they offer old services. So do you think libraries and librarians can do it? Can they change over the next few years? What do you think? I think if we are honest with ourselves, we would say the answer is no. I don't think libraries and librarians can do it. They cannot change. The librarian mindset is very strong. It's very hard to change. So what do we do? Now, I think that the onus is on IATLIS, members of IATLIS, the library science professors and researchers and teachers to lead this change. We need to not just teach and educate traditional library science, but we actually need to develop new services, new systems, new ideas. and to model this change, to lead the change, and then pass these new services and new systems to librarians. I think these are the 5 paradigm shifts that we need to address over the next few years. These are changes to the idea of libraries and librarians, our preconceptions, our assumptions. I think we need to focus more on information content over the information container. Now, I know that Dr. Ranganathan says that books are for use. Yeah, but I think that he also said a library is a growing organism. So I think we need to extend, we cannot, I think, just focus on books anymore. I think in those days, books are very important, but I think if Dr. Ranganathan is active today, he would say that we need to go beyond books, but also the ideas inside the book. So we need to take the books, yes, but we need to draw out the ideas and the content. And I think increasingly we need to focus not just on books, but on the content and the ideas inside the book. We need to have more focus on information use and not information needs. I think there's been too much research on information needs. I see a lot of these questionnaire surveys, to library users. What are your needs? What types of material do you need? And so on. I think that kind of research there's been too much of it, and I don't think they are useful. We need to focus. We need to study how users are using information and how to improve their information use. I think we also need to see librarians not just as intermediaries. In the past, we see librarians as a kind of like technical support. They mediate between the user and the books, or the information. So they are like middlemen. They are like technicians. I think librarians need to become scholars and researchers and innovators and inventors. Yeah. So we shouldn't play like just a middleman or middle person role, but we should actually be users of information. We need to create new knowledge, and so on. And of course, really, IATLIS members, the professors and the teachers of library science are these scholars and researchers, right? So we need to mentor these librarians and encourage them to continue to be scholars and researchers and innovators and inventors. Fourthly, I think we need to focus more on integrating and linking information rather than providing information. In the past, we see librarians as pointing the users to the book. Okay, here is the book, go and read it. Yeah. No, I think we need to help the users to draw out the ideas from the book and link the book, synthesize, and create new understanding from the book. So I would focus on information linking rather than information provision. And I think we need to focus on the librarian over the library. Quite often when I attend a conference, the host would organize library tours. Say, okay, this afternoon, meet in front of this, conference building, and there'll be a bus taking you to our famous library. To tell you the truth, over the past 10 years, I've stopped going to library tours. I tell my hosts, every library is the same. I want to meet the librarians. We need to focus on the librarians' ideas and competencies and the wonderful things they are doing, rather than the library building. Okay, now let me just focus a bit on the idea of linking. So in the past, the focus of libraries is on providing information or books to users. Dr. Ranganathan says every reader is book and every book is its reader, right? But I think we need to progress further to help the users to link and integrate information and to synthesize new knowledge. So using information, and I think Professor Gurmeet Singh, emphasized that people need to use information in their decision making, right? So linking information to a decision making involves integrating information. You need to link together different ideas, sometimes from different disciplines, and then applying it to a particular problem or task. So that's why I emphasize information linking and integration. A very important part for us as teachers of library science is learning, right? Learning, writing, problem solving. This involves a knowledge synthesis. And again, it is integrating information together into a coherent understanding, right? After you have linked information together, it needs to make sense as a whole. It needs to stand up as a knowledge structure. It needs to be so-called coherent. So this is my idea for a new mission or new perspective of libraries and librarians, and which is to focus on linking data, as well as information, and ideas and people and tools and apps, together. We link them together, in some way to support learning and creation of knowledge. So this is what I propose to be the new mission for libraries and librarians. Okay, now I indicated earlier that librarians cannot do this by themselves. So library school teachers like ourselves, we have to lead the way. We have to model this talk. We have to be role models. We have to show librarians how to do it. Okay? So since I am, I've been teaching for many years and I'm close to retirement. I thought that I should do this, I've been telling my colleagues, you need to model, you need to lead, So I thought I would go ahead and show and do it. Yeah. So this is one of my projects to develop something new, a new kind of information system and interface and service. Okay. So I'm going to talk about my summer project. I spent this summer and part of last summer developing this knowledge graph application as a model, as a template for my library colleagues to adopt and apply to their organization. By the way, I should say that this is only one example. This is not the only one, and I actually have other projects which I can tell you about in future talks. So I'm going to talk about knowledge graph and the related technology of graph database and graph visualization. And I thought that this topic is suitable for this occasion because it's actually, I would say, a new approach to knowledge organization. So it's one direction in knowledge organization, and it has implications for information system design. I'm trying to envisage, conceptualize, and design a new kind of information system, and also information service. Okay, so what is knowledge graph? There are all sorts of different definitions of knowledge graph. For today, I would say that a knowledge graph is a social network. Okay, I like the idea. We know that social network is a network of persons, right? And then people have ideas, But now we are applying this idea of social network and social network analysis to ideas, concepts, and knowledge, and then linking it to the objects and resources and artifacts. So this knowledge is represented as a network of nodes indicated by circles here, and then links or edges indicated by these lines. But in order to be a knowledge graph, we need to add knowledge to it. So we need to add some meaning or semantics to the social network. So right now we see that these are just nodes and links, but we need to add meaning to it. So every node here, now we need to associate it with a concept, class, from a taxonomy or classification system. So I see here that the nodes are assigned concept labels or class labels, and we have some metadata. It's like catalog records. They have fields inside. So these are attributes or metadata. Now the links themselves also have concept labels. They have relationship types. It's like broader term, narrow term, related term. But we cannot just say related term. We need to say what kind of relationship it is. So the relationships are also assigned meaning, semantics. And the relations can also have attributes. So that to me is a knowledge graph. It's a social network, but we assign meaning to it. But as librarians, we also should add some knowledge structure, right? We need to make a Dr. Ranganathan, in heaven happy, right? We are incorporating a taxonomy, class hierarchy or taxonomy or classification scheme. We can also, integrate colon classification in it. In addition to that, we also can have a relation hierarchy. We can take Dr. Ranganathan's relationships, facets, and develop it further, have more relations, more facets, and organize them in a hierarchy. So that's the knowledge structure. So we impose it on the knowledge graph. Okay, but many people ask, how is knowledge graph different from ontology, from semantic web, from linked data? One answer is that they're all the same. Yeah. So I think some people say that, well, knowledge graph is just a new term that was popularized by Google, but it's basically the same as or similar to ontology. What do I have here? Knowledge representation, semantic network, semantic web, linked data, they are all the same. But I think it would be useful if you try to make some differentiation, because knowledge graph is a new term. So I'm trying today to suggest how knowledge graph is different from ontology, and I think that will help to point a new direction, for library science. So how is knowledge graph different from ontology? Okay, this is just my own perspective. Okay, let me share it with you. This semester, I'm teaching a course in knowledge organization. And for that course, and this course is for knowledge management professionals, not really librarians, but knowledge management professionals. So they apply knowledge organization in the industry to organize enterprise portals, institutional repositories, SharePoint portals, and so on. So in this course, I spend half the course teaching them about ontology, right? So I teach them how to develop, how to specify in ontology. Then in the second half of the semester, I teach them knowledge graph. So of course, I have to tell the students how they are different. Now, this is the way I explain it. I say that in ontology, the focus is on supporting AI. Yeah. I know that currently the prevailing perspective of AI is data-driven AI. The focus is on data mining, processing lots of data. But researchers in AI know that eventually you need to add in semantics, you need to add in ontology. So I think this is going to become important in the future. Librarians should become involved in AI research by providing this expertise in ontology. And ontology has a particular background. The focus is on logic. So the current work in ontology came from logic, what is called first order logic and logical reasoning. Okay, so it's very logical. And the reasoning is based on class hierarchies and inheritance, and so-called axioms and property restrictions, and so on. So in other words, it's very technical. So librarians have a hard time learning ontology. Now let me tell you a secret. Even computer science students and IT professionals, they have a hard time learning ontology as well. It's not just librarians. So human beings generally have a hard time learning ontology because it's too logical. And it's very complicated. And you have to make sure that everything is logically consistent. Yeah. So I think I've come to the conclusion that ontology is too difficult. Too difficult for librarians, but also too difficult for IT people. So then we get to knowledge graph. So the focus of knowledge graph is, I think, to me, not AI, but to support users. See, so I say here, the purpose of knowledge graph is to support user browsing, mind mapping, getting an overview of the of the resources and the ideas, and linking, synthesizing information. So to me, knowledge graph is for users. So we make use of a network representation of nodes and links rather than on logic. Yeah. So for ontology, they have a big focus on logic, but in knowledge graph we are not so logical. We are more relaxed about it. The focus is more on linking relationships. And the reasoning, yeah, you can add some intelligence to knowledge graph, but it is not based on so much on logic. It's based on graph matching, and I'll show you some examples later. And it's based on social network analysis. So even though we add in semantics, classification scheme to knowledge graph, it's not so rigorous. And the semantics depends a lot on the designer, the person who is designing the knowledge graph. It's not so much imposed by, by standards and specifications. In ontology, we have many standards now. We have many specifications. We have a web ontology language version 2, and there are lots of specifications that define the ontology, and we have different encoding or exchange formats like RDF, XML, Turtle, which really freak my students out. I love them, but my students hate it, And in the course evaluation at the end of the semester, they express their dissatisfaction. They say I'm a bad teacher. I said, no, it's just, it's not my fault. It's the fault of the World Wide Web Consortium who came up with all these standards. So it's too difficult to code and use too many layers of specifications. And then in the end, the applications that are built on top of this ontology, so far it is not very exciting, So whereas for knowledge graph, there's no industry specification, at least not that I know. A lot depends on the knowledge graph software, or what is called the graph database software. The encoding format is just CSV file, your spreadsheet, and JSON, which can be read by human beings, and it is easier to apply and use. The difference between ontology and knowledge graph actually reminds me of the difference between classification schemes and taxonomy. I remember that 20 years ago, we started teaching taxonomy that's used in industry, which is very different from the library classification scheme and thesaurus. So for many years, I had to explain to the students how a taxonomy is different from a classification scheme and different from thesaurus, and so on. So what I tell them is this: classification scheme and thesaurus and AACR cataloging rules, they are very detailed, rigorous, comprehensive, very technical, and they support searching and yes, browsing on the shelves. They're used in libraries, but they are difficult for ordinary human beings to use. You need to be this strange person called a librarian, or actually a cataloger, to be able to, to code these classification schemes and use them. Whereas knowledge management taxonomy is used in enterprise portals, the organization's repository. So it's user-oriented. It's focused on the organization, the company, It's not focused on organizing the whole world's knowledge, just whatever is in the organization. And it supports browsing, and it's easier to use, So I think this relationship is reflected also in this. Ontology is very complicated, very technical, whereas knowledge graph is more easygoing, and easier to use. And I think librarians can get into this area of knowledge graph. Now, let me present to you my summer project. Okay, the name of this knowledge graph is Zubir Said knowledge graph. Zubir Said was actually grew up in Indonesia. I think it was in Sumatra, and then he migrated to Singapore. He was a musician, a songwriter, and so on. And he was the composer of the Singapore national anthem. So this Zubir Said knowledge graph is like a metadata layer to describe and to link. You now know that I emphasize linking a lot. You link the digital resources in the Zubir site collection at a particular school. So this school is the Nanyang Academy of Fine Arts. It's a school that teaches music, trains, professional musicians, artists, dancers, and so on. So the daughter of Zubir Said donated his personal archive, his letters, his music scores that is handwritten, all his compositions, also a lot of audiovisual tapes, and so on. So they approached me to develop like a interface, and portal for this personal archive of Zubir Said. But this school wanted the portal and interface to support researchers, rather than just retrieving, items. In other words, we want to help the users to link together the letters, and music of Zubir Said so that they can, have a coherent understanding of description of Zubir Said's work. By the way, Zubir Said was a composer for movies, so he wrote a lot of songs for the Malay, or Malaysian movies, because during that time, that was the golden age of the Malay cinema. Okay, this was before Disney and Hollywood and Bollywood conquered the world. So in those days, Zubir Said was famous as a composer of songs for these Malay movies. Okay, so this knowledge graph is a network of concepts, and the focus is to support mind mapping, to visualize, to get an overview of what is available, an overview of particular topics in this personal archive, and to support what I call associative browsing. That means browsing via related, related links, looking for items that are related to whatever item it is that you're looking at, and to support research. So we want to show relations between the various artifacts or digital objects. We are still in the processing of digitizing them, and events, around after the World War, in Singapore independence, and there was a time where a lot of countries came into being, right? And India as well became independent from the British. And we also want to link the resources to the web. So we link the resources to the Singapore National Archives, the Singapore National Library, news sites, even YouTube videos, commentaries from musicians and scholars. So overall, this is to help the user to link, integrate, synthesize a coherent picture or a story, okay, about objects in the personal archive. And you can also study about the social and cultural environment of that time. Okay, let me go on to the technical stuff now. So the system architecture is this. There are three parts to the system. Of course, there is the interface, the user interface, here. Okay. So I developed two user interfaces. One has a graph visualization, and the other one is a text-based interface. And then there is something called the middleware that sits between the user and the database. Yeah. So this middleware actually sits on the Google Cloud server. And then the database is a graph database. And I use this product called Neo4j. And this graph database stores the knowledge graph. So what I did was I started work on this last year. I spent half the summer just working on the knowledge graph, designing the metadata, the knowledge structure, the ontology. And then I coded it in the Neo4j graph database. And then I had a very simple text interface. So people were not very impressed because this is the work of librarians. We design all these very complicated knowledge structures, classification schemes, but nobody can see it, right? And then people wonder, what use is it? How can it do? Can it be used in a computer game? Something that excites us, and so on. So this year, this summer, since we are under lockdown, I worked on the interface. Okay, so this is to show that when you're developing an information system, the librarian, the traditional librarian job of ontology, is very important, but nobody can see it. So very important to develop very a useful application, but also the interface, should be exciting. So I spent half the summer developing the graph, the interface, and also the text interface. I also had to develop this so-called middleware, okay, system, and I'll explain more later why I had to develop this middleware. But first, the user interface. So I'm going to first talk at some length about the user interface. But this is like the end product. This is my recent. In fact, the interface was just launched 3 weeks ago. But I had to do a lot of work last summer in the metadata and the knowledge graph. Okay, right. So let me show you. I'm going to show you my web browser now, where the interface is. Okay, now can you see the interface, the screen? Xiaomi, can you tell me? By the way,
Yes.
you can. Yeah. By the way, let me introduce my collaborator and assistant in this project, Siam Gek, my former student, but she is, helping me with this project. But she's also extending this technology to a new project at the National Library. I'll ask her to say a few words in a moment. Okay, so when you access this website, and I provided the link in the talk, in the abstract talk, the abstract on the top. So this is zubirsite.sg. So when you go here, you'll see that there's this pop-up window. Okay, there's nothing. This is called a modal window. It's just to tell the user what this site is about. Okay? So if I click on this, it goes off. Okay? So this is the interface. Let me start by creating a graph here. So I'm going to select a song. And I'm going to select this one, Majula Singapura. That's our national anthem. So this is the interface. Okay, it looks a bit small, but I can make it bigger. Okay. So this is the visualization centering on Majula Singapura. You can see that this is Majula Singapura. Okay? And when I click on this, you see the metadata comes up in this information box. So there's a link between the text information and the graph. Okay, it's a bit entangled here, right? There's quite a lot of information. So I can ask the software to improve on its visualization. Okay, and I can also drag it around to help it, Oh, okay. Okay, so let's see if we can see the knowledge structure, the classification scheme inside this knowledge graph. So this is the Majula Singapura. And what is this? What is the type? What do you see here? Musical work, right? So this is a work. And then we see here that, get this out of the way. Okay, maybe this one is clearer. So we can see that there is a link called score that links to this. And what is this? This is called a score, right? Score. Okay. And the link here, okay, score means the music, the manuscript, the musical notes inside there. And you can see there's a link here called score. Yeah? So if I click on this, you see that, what is this? What is the relation? realization. Okay, so this gives you a hint. This is actually based on FRBR. The framework. What does it stand for? FRBR? No, I cannot remember. Okay, the requirements for for library catalog, right? So FRBR. So we know in FRBR that we start at the top with the work, and then what's the next? The next one is the expression, right? And then after that, what do you have? The manifestation, and then the item. Yeah. So that is the structure that is used in this knowledge graph. But because this is focused on music, I actually follow the music ontology, and the music ontology, follows FRBR. Except that instead of calling this expression, they call this a score. So a score is a kind of expression. So following FRBR. And then the relation is what? A realization, right? You realize the work into an expression. So this is, so you can see that this is realization. So initially I use a realization here, but my librarian friends, my librarian colleagues tell me that, hey, users have no idea what is this realization. So that's why I changed the label to score, okay? So that they are not so confused. And then, okay, so after this expression, this is a score. What do you have? What do you have next? Performed in, right? There's a performance, performance. So then a performance is also an expression following FRBR. But after you have a performance, then what do? You record the performance, right? So then you have a video recording or a sound recording. Okay. So that is also, I think, considered an expression. Let me show you something that has some text. Maybe this one. All right, now it's performed here, and now I want to see what is the manifestation and the item, right? Yeah, you notice that in this pop-up window, you have this button for expanding the node or removing the node. Yeah, so this is where I navigate to additional links. So actually, I have a shortcut here. If I right-click here, you can see that now. What do you have? Yeah, you have an item in the National Archives. Yeah. So this is the item link. Yeah. So this shows you that I'm trying to show that I'm following FRBR. But FRBR is too complicated. There are many links. So we try to simplify it. So for example, we don't use manifestation, because here we are not dealing with publications. So we skip manifestation. And we are also going to skip things like sound, which is in the original standard. We go directly to the item. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that we adopt library standards, but to make it more user-friendly, we simplify it. So this one will, if you click on this, it goes to the National Archives website where you have this item that you can see. So this is a record in the National Archives, and you can play it. Right, never mind. I won't I won't play it today. Okay? All right, let me show you one other. Okay, I can click on these other things as well. I can, for example, select another song. Let's say Semoga Bahagia, which is also a popular. This is a school anthem, not a national anthem, but school. Semoga Bahagia. Okay, so what is happening here? You can see that I'm adding to this graph. Yeah. So Zubir Said is the composer for Majula, but also the composer for Semoga Bahagia. Okay. Now, this is something that confuses users. Users think that when they click on this, they get a new retrieval, a new web page. But actually, no. For this kind of interface, when you click on extra things, you are just adding on to it, so you can see more links. Okay, but this is getting a bit difficult to see. So let me clear the canvas and maybe show you photos. Okay, see. Yeah, let me help it by pulling, It's kind of fun to be pulling these things. And by the way, this works well on iPad and touch interfaces as well. So nowadays, when we develop something like this, we have to think about those people using the phone and using the iPad. Okay, all right, let me show you this one. Yeah, you can see that there's a thumbnail here. Yeah, and then if you click on this, you get to the high resolution picture. Okay. You can drag this around, and actually you can pin this, and then this bigger or smaller. And what else? All right, so to tell you a bit about the design of this interface, in terms of this screen, there are three parts to it, right? There is this menu. Okay. Currently, we don't have a search box, but as we add in more and more items, of course, we will need to have a search function. Right now, it's more like browsing because you can select right here, browse. Okay. And then we have this main screen for showing all this the visualization. And on top of this, there are different functions that you apply to the visualization. For example, you can have a there's a concentric layout, different layouts. You can try different layouts. And I'm exploring the different layouts, different algorithms. There's a tree structure. Okay, this is tree structure doesn't work when there are so many items, and this is our default layout. When I design this interface, I have to make sure that the screen fits the size of the browser. Okay, so for example, if your browser is smaller, I can resize the canvas. You can see that now it is smaller, and especially if I look at this in my mobile phone, it's very small, right? So I have to adjust the size of the screen, the browser, size canvas. I can go full screen to see everything here. It's big, small. Okay, so this gives you some idea of this interface. Before I move on from this interface, I should say that the design of this visualization has two parts. One is to design the information. I need to design what kind of information to show here, especially how many links to show. So this is a decision that I had to make. I think in this case, for photos, it's very easy. You show the photo and then the people who are involved. Okay, but for some of them, the other options like letters, for example, I have to decide how many links to show. Okay, this one is a bit busy, right? Difficult. Yeah, you can see that this is one issue. The graph can get pretty complicated. And so if the graph is complicated, I have to decide, do I want to reduce the amount of links, the number of links to show? Yeah. So this is a design decision. I call this the information design. Okay, because based on the information design, I have to construct the graph matching query, to decide how big a graph or how small a graph to display. Then after that, I have to decide on the visual design, So there's the information design, there's the visual design. For the visual design, I have to decide on what colors to use, what shapes to use for the nodes, and so on. So what I do is I decide on a default color, so like this, this light purple color and an oval shape, okay? And then I want to distinguish between different categories of materials. So for example, for people, I have this, this shape, a different shape. Actually, I have this shape because originally I intended to put a thumbnail of the person here, but then later I changed my mind because I didn't want to slow down my visualization. So I decide on the shape to distinguish between different classes of materials. I also have to decide on what to highlight in my visualization. Okay, so you notice that I put a lot of emphasis on the music, like this one, the national anthem here. Okay, so to highlight a particular concept or note, I make it bigger. I use a different shape, and I also put a border around it, to bring it out. Also with persons, you notice that I have a border here, green border. Okay, so this is part of the visual design. So there's an information design on what to show, what graph to show, and then the visual design on the colors and shapes, and so on. Okay, let me show you now the text interface. Okay, the text interface looks like this. Okay, currently by default, it just shows you all the songs that that the composer has written. And let me click on this and show you the let's say maybe the letters. Okay, so you can see that the letters are displayed in separate cards. So this is one letter. Here's another letter. Here's a third letter. Here's a fourth letter. Okay. And each letter is on its own card. So I call this a card. But inside the card, there are many nodes, many entities. So this is the letter. This is the focal entity. I'm focusing on this letter. And then these are the relations. So it says this letter is about the national anthem of Malaya. Okay, and then the recipient is Zubir Said. Okay, and then in response to another letter. Okay? So in other words, I'm showing the network, but in a text kind of format. I'm showing the main node, and then the relation is on top here about recipient. And you can see there's an arrow pointing to this. Sometimes the arrow can go the other way as well. Okay, so here we see that this letter is in response to another letter over here. Okay? And you can see that there is a tooltip here that tells you that this can actually be, resized. Yeah, resizing is very important because to cater for different sizes of the mobile devices. Okay, I can also resize. Okay, let me show you a more complicated one. So this is okay. So you can see that this is in response to two letters. So this is one letter, response to one letter, and then another letter. So in other words, a particular relation can link to multiple items, multiple entities. Let me show you another one, photos. Okay, so these are photos. Yeah, you can see that here, this photo is about Rohana. Rohana is Zubir Said's daughter. So this is Zubir Said. Okay, this is the daughter. Of course, you click on it, it shows you the iris. And you can see persons shown, right? These are all the persons that are shown. So I list them inside this box. Okay. Now, what is nifty here is that notice that if I mouse over, it says here there's a tooltip that says double click to expand with relation. So I can actually expand this. So if I double click, maybe I choose this one. Okay, you can see that there's a pop-up card, and if I double click on this. Okay. Okay, so this is to navigate the graph. So I have to. So my text interface kind of parallels the graph. Okay, so there are many pop-up windows I can have, and I can adjust them. To adjust it, I got to pin it, and I can adjust it. Okay, and if I want to bring the card on top, then I'll click on this. Then I see it doesn't come all the way to the top. Yeah, so I need to have a function to bring the card to the front. So, okay, so this is the first version of my interface. So I'm thinking how to develop this further. Okay, let me go back to my slides now. I think I have only 5 minutes. So I indicated earlier that the visualization interface, the design involves what? The information design, and then the graph display, and then also I forgot to mention, you have to design also the interaction between the user and the graph, like what kind of clicks you want to support. The text-based interface makes use of a technology called React.js. So React is a technology developed by Facebook, and it's very popular now for use in interfaces. So that would be like the recommended technology for designing interactive, highly interactive user interfaces. So I call my design for this, to be the card and boxes design. So I call this card and boxer, right? So the entities are all in the boxes. But I thought that maybe a more vivid way of describing my design is this one. I don't know whether you're familiar with this. Dr. Ramaiah, do you remember this? What is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, these are dim sum, Chinese dim sum baskets.
Yes, yes.
Dim sum. And actually at NTU, we have a building that looks like that, dim sum basket. It is an actual building. This is like our iconic building at NTU. So when you come to NTU, you must visit. This is one of the buildings that you must visit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I see this as a dim sum interface, because here you have a stack, for each relation you have a stack of entities. Let me close some of these, getting noisy on the screen, right? Okay, you can have you have this relation, person shown, you have one entity, another. So each of these is like a basket that you stack up, you stack up all the baskets. Yeah, so I like to call this a dim sum interface design. Okay, now briefly the middleware. This interface connects to the database, and the database is here, the graph database. Yeah. So actually the middleware is, strictly speaking, not needed. Okay, the middleware is not needed. You have the interface and it can connect directly to the database. But there are some issues. If I connect directly to the database, it means that I have to provide the user ID and the password inside the interface. So inside here, if you right click and you go to inspect, you inspect the HTML code and JavaScript, you can see the password and the for connecting to my database. So that's dangerous, right? Yeah. So one purpose of the middleware is to hide the connection to the database so that people are less likely to hack into the database. Also, in a middleware, you can do lots of processing. You can do intelligent processing in it. Okay, you can do processing that cannot be done on the web browser. So that's why I implemented this so-called middleware, and then graph database. I thought I'd show you some additional capabilities of the graph database that may not be obvious. My interface is very easy, right? Very simple. All it does is that it lets you browse. For example, if I right click, right, you're browsing a new, I think I clicked on this one. Yeah. So here I click on Abhishek Ganadhan and it's showing me the link to the Wikipedia article and then his biography, and so on. So it's basically just traversing additional links. But I wanted to show you that a graph database can incorporate some intelligent processing. So for example, if I want to find out the link between like Zubir Said and Ramli Sarip, okay? Ramli Sarip is active today. He's a famous singer today. And if I want to find out what is the relationship between Zubir Said and Ramli Sarip, then I can ask the database to find the path. So I can find the path that goes from this link to this, and then to this, and then to this arrangement, and then to this performance, and then to him. Yeah. So you can find the link between the two persons. So this would be useful in a social network kind of setting, right? You want to find out what is the connection between Dr. Ramaiah and Chris Cook, so you can go into the social network, and then the graph database can look for identify the path, going from one person to another. You can also look for structure. So in this case, we have one letter, and then this is a response to another letter, and then another response to another letter, right? So you can see things evolving over time. And these are letters between two persons, between Zubir Said and the director of the National Museum. So you can see that the director sent a letter to Zubir Said. Okay, so Zubir Said is the recipient, and then the next letter is Zubir Said send a response. Yeah, and then there's a third letter. Yeah, so this forms some kind of a structure. So in the graph database, you can identify structures of relationships. You can have even more complicated structure. Okay, this one is for pictures. So if there are pictures, you want to find out who are the people in the pictures. And if you find a picture that has me and Dr. Ramaiah, then you know that we are friends. We know each other. We're in the same picture. Yeah. So here you can see that here for the funeral of Zubair's side, these are the people who are in that picture. And then for the Zubair side's daughter, the wedding that has the president in the picture. Yeah. So you can find out who are the people who appear. Two persons appearing in multiple pictures, maybe over time. So we can see their relationship like over time. So this is a more complicated kind of graph image. Okay, so finally, I want to say that the biggest part in the designing and developing this system is the knowledge graph. Okay, so I haven't spent much time in talking about how I designed this knowledge graph, but I actually started out designing it as an ontology. So I use this imported ontology. I use schema.org, music ontology, FRBR, DBpedia, C.crm. So I use this I import them into my ontology. But later, I find that this is too complicated to display to the user. They get totally confused, and these are all different terminologies and concepts. So I had to simplify them. So it's too complex for browsing. Maybe I can tell you that among all these ontologies, the most useful I found was schema.org. Schema.org is like a vocabulary, right? So it's quite comprehensive. And of course, I can use music ontology because my graph is focused on music. Okay, I wish I had more time to actually show you the system. I wanted to show you the program, the different parts of the system because they are on the cloud. So much of the system resides in Google Cloud and in the Neo4j cloud. And I can actually show you the code, in the system in the cloud. But I think I have taken up enough of your time. I just want to say that I am beginning to pass this technology and this system on to librarians here in Singapore and knowledge management professionals. I'm telling them that they can use this in their organization and apply it to knowledge management and so on. In fact, I have my assistant here, Siamgek. Can you say hello?
Yes. Hello.
Yeah, okay.
Hello.
Yeah. So Siamgek was my assistant in this project, and now she is working with the National Library to apply this technology to develop a social network of Singapore pioneers. Yeah. So currently, we are looking to see how we can extend this interface and this knowledge graph to Singapore pioneers. And I have other similar projects to apply this to multiple applications. Okay, so I think that's it for today. And I'm actually happy to share my code with you if you want to apply this or use this in your organization. Okay, back to you, Professor Ramaiah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Chris. Actually, there are wonderful and innovative ideas you actually shared with us, and I think it's eye-opening to many of the allied professions in India to think in new directions and work so that they'll be able to come up with new services for the survival of the profession. I think the IATLIS has to take lead in this and then actually to look forward and actually develop this kind of ideas so that the upcoming allied professional will have good life in future. So I am really grateful actually to you. I know because we have a class in the evening, of course. In spite of that, actually you rescheduled and you took the class time and then organized this, provided us this lecture. I'm really grateful, Dr. Chris.
Yeah, I know that we cannot miss this date.
Yes, I
do not disrespect Dr. Ranganathan.
Yeah, I'm really grateful, of course. Please convey my regards to all our the colleagues also. Really thankful for your time and thank you for giving a wonderful talk. We are all really grateful. Your colleague, she want to say something.
Siamgek, you want to say something?
Can I say something?
Yeah, you can say a few words about your experience.
Can. Okay. Hello, friends. Happy Library Day. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, please go on.
Okay. Happy Librarians Day. I'm
you.
Singh from Singapore. I learned knowledge organization when I was a master program student, and Dr. Chris Koo was my lecturer, and this was about 4 years ago. Of course, I did it in the National Technology University of Singapore. I'm currently doing a library fellowship project with our National Library on social network of Singapore pioneers. And this include, the pioneers are the famous important people in our history, and they include Zubia Said. And I do this in collaboration with Dr. Koo. I would like to say that the technology of graph data and graph visualization interface are fascinating and fun. The technology I use, that I've learned to use Neo4j and Cytoscope, and Dr. Koo taught me step by step, layer by layer on how to create a knowledge graph. Okay, so in my closing of this few-word session, I would like to encourage all librarians to have a go at creating knowledge graph to support research and learning and going beyond the traditional method. It is definitely fun and inspiring for librarians and users. And if I can do it, all of you can do it. I'm not even a librarian.
Okay.
Okay. So librarians have the skill of cataloging and so on, and that would definitely be an advantage. Okay. So come to Singapore and learn from Dr. Chris Koo and see our dim sum building.
No, there's no need to come in Singapore.
Thank you very much
Online.
for having this opportunity to have a few words with all of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Siam Gek, and for your the work, what you are doing, sharing your ideas. So thanks both of you, really, because wonderful talk, because some of these things are new, which actually we have not experienced, which have not started this part of the world. And now we have actually the one more, the expert, who is actually directly the student of Dr. Ranganathan. And he was heading the institute, which was started by Ranganathan, of course. In 1962, DRTC was established by Dr. Ranganathan, and Professor I.K. Ravichandra, he is actually direct student of Professor Ranganathan, and he also headed for a long time, of course. I have privilege of introducing Professor Ravichandra after completing his BSc in Mathematics and Statistics from Mahatma Gandhi Memorial College in Udupi in 1968. He obtained master's degree in statistics and diploma in computer science from Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, in 1970. He has also completed the associateship in documentation from DRTC of ISI, and he received his PhD from University of Western Ontario, Canada, 1981. He joined DRTC in October 1970. Since then, he was working as professor, and he headed the DRTC for a long time. And he is also chief editor of the Colnet Journal of Scientometrics and Information Management, and also SRELS Journal of Information Management. He is a fellow of Society for Information Science, New Delhi, since 1996. Now I have a privilege in requesting him, requesting Professor Ravichandra Rao to speak on Ranganathan's contribution to librometry. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Ramaiah. Professor Gurmeet Singh, Professor Harinderpal Singh Kalra, Professor Jagtar Singh, Dr. Kusogaon, Professor Ramaiah. Certainly it's a privilege for me to talk a few words about Dr. Ranganathan's contribution to quantitative studies. I'll be very brief in my remarks, comments, and my talk. I'll not be talking, certainly not more than about 25 to 30 minutes. On this occasion, I thought that I will talk Ranganathan's contribution to quantitative studies. All of you know that the metrics is a key topic in any discipline. Ultimately, it is the metrics which helps us to study and understand the subject and also to evaluate certain issues related to the particular discipline. Now, there was a term called a statistical bibliography, which was coined sometime in 1922 by Hume. Now, it was a new term then. Everyone was surprised when then what is this subject, statistical bibliography. Certainly it is not a bibliography of statistics. It's an analysis, quantitative analysis of a bibliography. How many articles are from, say, US or UK or France or India or Singapore, etc. Or how many articles are there in the English language or the French language or the German language. You know, this kind of a study just to analyze the bibliography, who published, who wrote, where, when, etc. But then in 1948, Dr. Ranganathan, in the first ASLIP conference held at Leamington Spa in 1948, coined the term librometry. He gave just in a one-sentence argument. Today's context, then in 1948 he said, librarians are handling large numbers. And it is high time to think of librometry the way biometry, psychometry, econometry people think about. That is all he said. Nothing more than that. So he just recommended that we should develop a subject, or we should think of a subject called librometry, and we should develop it the way psychometry or econometry or biometry, etc. developed it. That's, as early as 1948, Dr. Ranganathan said. But no one has really took interest, or maybe the time was not ripened to develop the subject. It was in 1969, Dr. Ranganathan again used the term librometry and defined it, the application of statistical techniques for library and information science. And also Professor Neelamegan in the same conference in 1969 gave a scope of the subject, what it should cover, etc. Again in 1960, until 1969, no one talked about librometry, no one talked about metrics. But Dr. Ranganathan silently used it, applied it, then demonstrated it where all metrics can be used. And that's what I'm going to say about in a few words. In 69 conference, Neelamegan did explain the scope of the subject. Of course, many of us know the same year in 1969, Pritchard coined the term bibliometrics. It was published in Journal of Documentation. Everyone knows about it. Everyone quotes it. Pritchard, a person who coined the term bibliometrics. But there are very few I have seen that there was another person in the same year, Fairthorne. He also defined the term bibliometrics. It was published in the same journal, Journal of Documentation. It was in the same issue, but everybody quotes Pritchard. I don't know why. But there is no difference between the definition. There's the same application of statistics to, books or characteristics of books, etc. There's not much difference. But Pritchard's definition is a popular, but a Fairthorne definition is equally same and a good, etc. Since then, people started using the bibliometrics. They never bothered to refer to librometry. We don't know why again. Why librometry was not used. In 1989, Second International Conference on Scientometrics, Bibliometrics, etc., held in Canada. That was in 1989. In that conference, Brooks was asked to give a keynote address. In the keynote address, Brooks clearly said, I was not aware of Ranganathan's term librometry. If I would have known that Dr. Ranganathan used the term librometry, I would have voted for it and I would have continued that term instead of bibliometrics. This is actually the language used by B.C. Brooks in 1989. Now, of course, bibliometrics developed quite a lot. Later, another term came up, informatics. Now, none of them are being used. Everyone talks about scientometrics. Okay, let me stop it there. Let me go back to what is this librometry, Dr. Ranganathan's word. See, during his librarianship at Madras University, that is during 1922 to 1944 in Madras University, he arranged the books according to the column classification sequence. But then strictly speaking, physically he did not organize it in that style. In the ground floor, he kept all the books pertaining to literature and related topics. In the topmost floor, the fourth floor of the Madras University Library, he kept the books about mathematics and science subject. In 69 conference, he said he organized that it is simply because there are more number of users in the field of literature and related topics, and therefore I kept those books in the ground floor. And there were a very few users who read or who refer to mathematics or related topic. That's why I kept those books in the fourth floor. According to the organization, column class mathematics comes, B comes mathematics, O comes literature. So mathematics should have been in the ground floor. No, he did not organize it. So knowingly or unknowingly, he did apply some kind of an empirical study there. He knew there are more number of users in literature than mathematics, and he organized it. So he used to collect data about the users and their interest, and he maintained a record on that, and accordingly he arranged the books in the library. Similarly, he used to collect statistics, library statistics. One of the most eminent librarians. He used to collect library statistics so clearly and maintained a record of that so clearly. That is about the circulation data. This circulation data, he himself in the 69 volume, it is there, he said he used it heavily for a book in the book acquisition policy. If he wanted to buy multiple copies of the books in the library, he used to refer to the library circulation statistics. If there is a demand for that book, then only he used to go for the second copy in the library. He never encouraged to buy more than one copy at a time in the beginning. That's another example where we used library statistics very clearly to buy. And also to withdraw the books, he heavily depended on the library statistics, circulation statistics. He never asked for the users whether to withdraw this book or not. For 10 to 15 years or about 20 years of circulation data, he analyzed and then he applied whether it should be used, withdraw or not withdraw the books. So that he consciously, he used statistics, he used quantity, he used the library data. That's something very important. Similarly, he used arrangement of the periodicals. This is again based on the data, not simply alphabetical sequence or a subject sequence or not. In the first shelf, the most important library document, periodicals, which are heavily used. So these are three examples. Now, another example where he clearly used the library statistics was volume binding of periodicals. It is a very costly affair. He never used to bind all the periodicals in the library. He knows certain periodicals hardly used after 7 years or hardly used after 4 years or something. He has the data of the periodical usage. Now, once he has the data, heavily used periodical, he used to bound immediately so that it should not tear, the issue should not miss, etc., etc. Otherwise, some of the journal, he used to simply make stitching of all the issues of the journal and then please kept it in the library for some time. Then maybe for archival purpose, he took a decision to bind it depending upon the availability of the fund. This is another area where he clearly used the periodicals, usages. Now comes, quite often in those days, there was a problem of reclassification very frequently. Reclassifying the whole library collection was a big issue at that time. Some wanted to reclassify from a colon to DDC or a DDC to colon or a colon edition 1 to edition 2 or edition 2 to edition 4, etc. This problem was there during the 50s and 40s. Law of principle of osmosis, heavily used books, frequently used books used to be reclassified first, and unused or less used books are reclassified later period, where he used this quantitative analysis as a discussion purposes. Similarly, when he prepares a budget and allocating the budgets for buying books and the buying periodicals, it was in those days, it was a critical issues. People used to ask question, what is the percentage of a budget for a periodicals? What is the percentage of a budget for books collection, books, etc.? And how much for allocating a book? It's, sometimes it's just 30%, 40%, sometimes 50%, 50%. No one knows. But also he doesn't know how to allocate for books total. He used to take a sample book from the catalog, books catalog, or the publisher's catalog. Then he used to calculate himself average cost of the books. Then he used to estimate total budget for the book purchase. Very scientifically he did it. This is again an application of a statistics in preparing the budget. He has recorded all these things. And we know in 69 conference where, he presented all these issues. Of course, now the issue comes, these are the areas where statistical applications we can find, where we can apply statistics to day-to-day administration of the libraries. Honestly speaking, I don't know now how many librarians are really collecting the data and using the data in their day-to-day administration. I don't know that. But one thing is sure, librametry, strictly speaking, in general, is unknown to us. I think we should we should apply our mind, and we should collect the data, and we should apply our mind, and then we should take a decision accordingly. In today's context, most of our librarians have at least MLibs degree. It's a master's degree, and they are thoroughly taught research methodology. That means they are aware of data collection, data application, etc. I would appreciate, if all of us can hands together and we take decisions in a day-to-day administration in the library based on the data. Now, librametry has gone, yes, bibliometrics, the word became popular. Then informatics came. This is particularly Americans preferred this word. In fact, I was involved in the first 9 or 10 international conferences in scientometrics. In the fourth conference at Berlin, we even had a difficulty to accept the terminology. We wanted to have an international conference on informatics. People did not agree. Someone said, no, bibliometrics word should be there. Some said, particularly from Europe, no, we want scientometrics. If I say bibliometrics, no one will give me the research grant. If I say I'm doing a research in scientometrics, I get a research grant. Openly, they said. That's why today we say international conference on scientometrics, bibliometrics, and informatics. These 3 terms are there. Now, in all of these 3 subjects, we discuss same thing. What are we discussing? We are discussing classical 3 laws of bibliometry: Bradford's law, Lorca's law, Zipf's law. We discuss growth of literature as well as obsolescence of literature. This is a very important, both are related. Then we discuss use and user studies. Use and user studies, document as well as user studies. Then we discuss circulation data analysis. We discuss circulation data analysis. We also discuss citation data analysis, impact factor, H-index, and then collaboration studies, etc. And finally, we discuss mapping of science. These are generally the scope of librametry or bibliometrics or informatics or scientometrics. All these things are there. And the basic things were even discussed by Ranganathan, even in those days. And that's where, we should be proud of Ranganathan's contribution. Even in those days, I would say 1940s, during the Second World War time, when he was a librarian at the Madras University, he was keen on collecting the data and take a decision. With this brief remark, I shall stop here. Professor Ramaiah, you can.
Thank you, sir. Sir, thank you very much for your very elaborative talk, which because some of these things which I myself am not very sure. We were taught librametric very basic way. We didn't go through in depth. Now I am very much clear. You started with metrics, going to the librometrics, and informatics, and bibliometrics, and cytometrics. Now things are very, very clear. I think mostly the students will be very benefited out of your talk, of course, much rather than the librarians. Librarians also will be using, most of us or librarians are doing only user studies, and this will be very, very useful talk to them. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now,
Thank you very much.
This is actually time for the question answers QA, and the participant, if they have any actually the questions for both the speakers, Dr. Krishnu and actually Professor Rajendra Rao. If any questions are there, please directly you can raise your questions, and directly you can they'll be happy to actually answer those. From the participants, any questions, please? What I can see in the feedback is they're telling excellent. So many of the compliments given actually for both the talks. And I'll be actually sharing these.
If they have any question, let them send it to my email. I will answer to it.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, Rekha would like to ask something. Yes,
Yeah. Good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I wish to congratulate the organizing team, Prof. Ramaiah and IATLIS, for such a wonderful program on Librarian's Day. And I wish all of you a very happy Librarian's Day. So thank you so much, Dr. Christopher and Professor Ravichandra Rao, for giving giving excellent lecture on knowledge graph and Ranganathan's means librometrics. So my first question is to Dr. Christopher. Sir, what are the skills required for the librarians in the present digital world? And for achieving that, what changes can be made in the curriculum of library science?
Dr. Rekha, you have asked a very difficult question. And that is because librarians don't really know what direction to take, right? We are all searching for directions. At IFLA, they have a committee that's been looking at all these new directions, right? So nobody, and IFLA is also, what is it? They had a project where they collect ideas from librarians and library associations all over the world for ideas, you know? So there are all sorts of different ideas. So that makes it very difficult for library schools, you know, to plan their curriculum because we don't know what direction to take. So what I would say is that each professor needs to identify a direction to take, you know, and then pursue that direction and teach it to your students. Yeah. So rather than prescribing a curriculum for, you know, for all the schools, you know, rather than for me to say what you should teach, I think every library school professor needs to follow their passion, explore new directions according to their interests and their talents, and then and propose it to the, you know, to the library community. But what I would like to say is that it's not enough just to teach a course. You know, I think we need to mentor and work together with librarians to develop those services. So I think that in future, post-pandemic, the role of library school teachers is not just in the classroom. After the classroom is over, we need to keep in touch with the students, continue to interact with them and guide them and work with them to develop library services. And one example is Siam Gek, you know, who was my former student, and we kept in touch, and she is learning from me and then applying it to the National Library project. And I have other such students, you know, because I'm an old man now. Recently, my student from over 20 years ago came, you know, and she's you know, retired. She doesn't have any, you know, she's quite free. So I got her to participate in this project, you know, and so she is helping me to develop and maintain this. And later I will work with her to you know, to teach other librarians, to transfer the skills of the librarians. So I would say I don't know how to answer your question, but I would say that library school professors need to develop new innovative, services and ideas, and then mentor, work together with librarians to fulfill that. Perhaps what I should also say is that we are entering the golden age of IT. So information technology is quite mature now, and we don't know it yet, but I think we are at the beginning of the golden age of IT. What I mean by that is that the technology is quite mature and they are quite productive. So previously, when librarians want to implement a system, they need to hire programmers. They need to set up a library automation department to develop these systems. But now it's no longer necessary. For this project, there are only 3 of us who set up the initial system, and I myself programmed the system from top to bottom. All the layers of the technology and even the metadata, the knowledge graph, ontology design. I did it, but I worked together with Siamgek and my former students so that they can help me to do the more routine work, but also to learn it and now to apply it to other. So I think we maybe can adopt the old-fashioned internship, guruji kind of model, where we mentor our students to develop new things. And those technologies are now on the cloud, so I don't need an IT department. Previously, I needed IT professionals to set up the server, and the servers are really complicated. But now, Google, Amazon, Microsoft are so happy to help me and support. They are my IT department. So I can put it on their server, and it can be up quite soon. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you so much for explaining the construction of knowledge graph in a simple way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reka. We should talk some more and maybe collaborate or something.
Any other questions from the participants? If somebody is raising hand.
Yes, myself, Dr. S.K. Shanapati.
Yeah, please.
From Central Building Research Institute, Roorkee.
Yeah.
Actually, good afternoon to all of you. And I have sharing my experience because I was in National Museum, Delhi. So, and I was appointed as slide librarian there.
Yes.
So it is very difficult task all the time. There is no such type of computer software and other things also to do the things is computerized and everything. But thank you to Professor Kho. It's very explained in very nice way. How can you the things means computerize everything on the National Archives materials, artifacts, everything, sound, music, and things. And it is really great job. And we must learn the non-artifacts material. How can you the computerize? How can you things sharing to national international level? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Any more questions?
Maybe I can say
Good
a few
afternoon,
words.
sir.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, please.
Both sections are very useful, sir.
Yes, thank you. Any questions you have? No, compliments are okay. Questions we are asking because everybody is waiting for.
Feedback form.
Pardon, feedback. Okay, no problem. You can just send your message on the text.
So,
Abhijit.
yes. So
Yeah,
I have a good afternoon, everybody. What are the softwares, or is there an open source softwares, or it's proprietary softwares for building this knowledge graph? And what are you using?
Yeah, thank you very much, Abhijit, for the question. I'm going to forward to Dr. Ramaiah my slides, so that will list down all the software I use. The graph visualization is done by something called Cytoscape. This was originally developed for gene ontology, so they had to look at relationships between different types of genes and molecules and what functions. Yeah. So, and you can see that it's pretty good. Yeah. But I'm also going to explore other open source visualization. There's something called Sigma.JavaScript, and then there is a Viz. So I don't know how they compare, because these visualization softwares, it's hard to figure out how good they are and how they compare without trying them out. So I'm going to get some students to try to implement them so that we can compare them. They are all free. These visualization software, this Cytoscape that I'm using is free. Yeah. For the graph database, there are some free graph databases softwares, but again, I don't know how good they are. What I'm using is Neo4j, which, according to Neo4j, they are the most popular, and I kind of believe them. I think they're the most popular. Neo4j is free when you use it on your desktop, so you can use it for class. You can download and use it on your computer for free. But if you want to use it, if you want to put it on a server, yeah, and you want to have a public kind of system, public access system, then you have to either buy the Neo4j for the server, which I don't know how much it costs. But what I do is I buy their cloud Neo4j service, and if there's time, I can show it to you. Okay, that costs about 60 US dollars a month. Yeah, so I pay that amount, 60 US dollars a month, and I think that's that's really reasonable. Yeah. In addition to that, I'm also using a Google Cloud app engine. So I don't know how much that's going to cost, because that depends on whether my software becomes popular or not. So if you all come and use and my system becomes viral, then I have to pay quite a lot of money because they charge me accordingly. But the good thing with all these cloud services is that you can tailor it. So if you don't have much money, then you make it smaller, and limit it to the number of access, yeah, so that you can control your budget. But the good thing about the cloud is that you can just put things out there fairly quickly. Yeah, and you can pay as you go. You don't have to buy servers ahead of time and spend lots of money. You can just subscribe month by month, and then if you run out of money, you can stop.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any more questions? It looks not many. Okay, no problem. So I think I think it's a time to wind up. So I would like to thank all my library staff who are actually this one behind this function. And there's something actually, particularly there are people like Dr. Vijay Kumar, who is actually in collecting and designing and sending messages, all that. And Mr. Manik Velu is there in the posters, banners, etc. Even Mr. Olirve. But there are many people, all are actually one way or other involved in organizing this function, of course. So I would like to thank the university authorities from my end, but the formal vote of thanks will be given by one of my colleagues, Dr. Shibu. He will give the formal vote of thanks. Over to Shibu.
Yeah. And thank you very much, Professor Ramaiah, sir. It's a great honor for me to be here to propose the vote of thanks. I, on behalf of Pondicherry University and on my behalf, I would like to thank Chris Koo for giving us a detailed lecture on knowledge graph. And I also would like to thank Siam K, who was assisting Chris Ku for joining with us today. Thank you all for coming with us and explaining all these concepts. It is new to us, in fact. I also would like to thank our one of the senior professional, Professor Ravichandra Rao. We are all honored to have you here today with us, sir. Thank you for explaining the librometry in detail. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us. I also would like to mention here that the Pondicherry University is fortunate to have a professional platform like Indian Association of Teachers in Library and Information Science, IATLIS. I would like to thank Professor Singh Kalra and Professor Jagtar Singh for collaborating with us and explaining all the activities of IASLIC in short, and also proposing a chair of SR Ranganathan in Pondicherry University. Thank you, sir. And a big thanks to our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Gurmeet Singh, sir, for his encouraging words and his presidential remarks. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Professor Ramaiah, sir. This program is one of the, the original concept comes from the Professor Ramaiah, sir, and he was the one who is behind bringing Professor Ku, Ravichandra Rao, sir, and everybody, and collaborating with IASLIC. Thank you very much, sir, for guiding us and directing in conducting this workshop in a grand and successful manner. Thank you very much, sir. I also would like to express my sincere gratitude to all participants of this national seminar. Without your active participation and presence, this program wouldn't have been a great success. Thank you all. And I also would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to my colleagues. Like Ramesh sir said, Mr. Olirvel, Vijay Kumar, Manikevelu, and everyone on the library team of Ananda Rangapilai Library, Pondicherry University, their support and help definitely are putting together each and every components of this workshop, and we are making this as a great success in this event. Thank you all, library team, for being with us and supporting us and helping us. And I would like to conclude today's remarks with a quote from S.R. Ranganathan. The quote goes like this: if you want to be a reference librarian, you must learn to overcome not only your shyness, but also the shyness of others. Once again, wish you all a happy Librarians Day. Thank you all for being with us. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shibu and all your colleagues. Yeah, well done. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Chris. Thank you, Prof. Professor Ravichandra. Thank you, sir. So thanks to all the participants who actually took interest in participating, make it a lively program. And Dr. Chris particularly, because you took a lot of risk in adjusting your class schedule. So thank you very much once again. So NTU, everybody's now you are working from the home or the NT this classroom?
No, I'm at my office to make sure that I have good internet connection.
Okay.
But tonight I'm running my class online. Yeah.
Okay.
So I run my online classes from my office to ensure the internet access. Yeah.
So we are all doing the same thing. Everything is from office, just virtual class.
Yeah.
Running because even the exams are also online. There's no other way, of course.
But from next week onwards, we can have physical face-to-face classes.
Okay, good.
But limited to 50 students. So for bigger classes, they're still online.
Okay. So that means you need to take more classes, splitting the class into 2 batches or 3 batches, like.
No. I just if I have to do that, what I do is I make them register if they want to come to class, and if there are more than 50 people, the rest have to go online.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, yeah. And anyway, the students have got used to going online. Now they are lazy to come to school. Some of these students. Yeah. So even though I put out a registration form and all that, in the end I just stopped doing that because actually not everybody will come to the
Yeah,
physical
yeah.
class. Now they are used to attending class from their bedroom and from bed in bed.
Yes. Yes.
I tell them to switch on their camera, but they don't want because they
Yeah.
are in bed.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So thank you very much. Then we will, likely online we'll be able to meet frequently, but I don't know physically when we'll be able to meet. Of course, we look for meeting, of course. Maybe some professional event definitely will meet. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.